Hello, it's December once again. Oh, it's been a while. See Garfield there behind me, my mother's cat. He's 18 years old, still going strong. In the news, there's been a lot of topics on discussion. Seems my province is making waves, although it's not the only one. Saskatchewan certainly has as well, with the Saskatchewan First and the Alberta Sovereignty Act. And I've been asked by various individuals, not so much on YouTube, but on other sources, on what my overall perception of that is. And for me, it's quite simple. If you actually read the act, which I know most people haven't, especially the mainstream media, you will find that it's actually not as dangerous as a lot of people think it is. The only thing it's stating is that the province will refuse to basically, in a nutshell, will refuse any laws or regulations that do not pertain to provincial jurisdictions. In other words, whenever Ottawa tries to screw around with Alberta's economy or Alberta's healthcare or anything else that falls under that jurisdiction, Alberta can basically say no. It will not uphold any laws or regulations that are part of that system. I don't know how this goes with gun registry, however. I have not really looked into it that much to find out if there are provincial regulations or if there could be provincial regulations in regards to firearms. If there is, I would imagine the Sovereignty Act would also allow us to basically ignore the new regulations that are coming out with this new bill that Trudeau is instituting. That will basically make it so that 90% of most farmers and hunters' firearms are either illegal or questionable. I don't really have much of an opinion on the gun registry program one way or the other. In my opinion, it has always been a waste of time and money. And because you don't have to be part of the registry process in order to purchase and own a firearm in Canada, you just need the appropriate licensing, which does require a criminal background check and a few other things that the RCMP have to do. The hard reality is that it only really pertains to sport shooters or, in essence, people who wish to register their firearms for transportation. Because a non-registered firearm in a vehicle is not a crime, but the police will take it and destroy it. The police are notorious, especially the RCMP, in basically the no-knock warrant to take your firearms and destroy them. This can be rather devastating, not because of ownership rights or things like that, but because, believe it or not, most hunters and farmers and guys who actually own long guns, if you actually know what they are, most of them are family heirlooms. There are gun nuts in every country. Canada's no exception. And I'm pretty sure they can find somebody who's got a whole closet full of ARs that they probably never even fired, let alone done anything with them of any real report. I don't have a high opinion on ARs anyway. I think they're a very cheap version of the military issue rifle, and in my opinion, they're good for what they're supposed to be used for, and not much else. I have noticed most people, the common complaint that they have with them is that because it is made, some versions are made cheaply, that the parts they wear out fast, and therefore they become a high maintenance rifle if they do use them. I also wanted to chat about energy, because at the end of the day, that's what all of this is about. Alberta is a landlocked province. Other people have said this. I'm going to say this. It's just geography. It is the way it is. Saskatchewan is in the same boat. It's a landlocked province. And as a result, our resources, potash, oil, natural gas that Saskatchewan has, and the oil, natural gas, and coal, and various other exportations, especially agriculture products that we both share, grain, beef, and all that good stuff, it has to go through other provinces to get to international markets unless it's going directly to the United States. Ottawa has a bad habit of over-regulating things to the point where it's not really feasible for us to actually do this. And companies end up having to spend billions of dollars on a 50-50. The Sovereignty Act and the Saskatchewan First Act will allow these provinces to coordinate with each other and with other provinces outside of that regulatory body. This scares Ottawa for various reasons. Scared them so much that they actually got the natives involved in the form of the Grand Chiefs. Now, I don't know enough about the politics involved in that because obviously I'm not native. Well, what I do know is that it's led to a lot of mixed feelings where I live, because where I live, there's a large native population. And the reason why it's led to mixed feelings is very, very simple. Most are confused, the rest are just pissed off. At the end of the day, there are plenty of native bands, especially in Alberta, and I'm pretty sure in Saskatchewan as well, that actually produce oil and gas. And some of our largest ones, with maybe the exception of the Enoch Cree, make a living off of it. So the hard reality is that if they can't get their product to market, it actually affects them just as much as it affects the multi-million-dollar corporations that want to use this system as well. There's also a clause in every pipeline that has ever been built that if it has to go through or around or encroach on the jurisdictions of the reserves or bands, that they have to be involved in the process. This isn't anything new. It's been around for a very long time. And as a result, if a corridor, an economic corridor, as Danielle Smith likes to call it, is established, then the hard reality is that the native groups of the area have to get involved, whether the companies want them to or not. So I don't really see that as an issue worth arguing about, because it's written right there in the bylaws, in the process. You can't get a pipeline built around those areas without involving the people who live in those areas. It's as simple as that. Even if the provinces cut through all the red tape, even if they can get in, even if they can get Manitoba in on it and establish something in Churchill or some of the other ports along the Hudson Bay, even if we can make this miracle happen, and there's no guarantee that that's going to happen, at the end of the day, what it turns into is, in terms of the business aspect of how the natives are dealt with, they will be dealt with in the same manner as they're dealt with everywhere else when it comes to this, unless in other provinces there are exceptions. There isn't in Alberta, and I know there isn't in Saskatchewan, and I wouldn't imagine there is in Manitoba. So they're going to be involved. It doesn't matter. They are going to be involved. And what they want will be appeased to in one form or another. So again, I don't really see that as much of an issue here. I think Ottawa's just grabbing at straws because it's going to happen whether they like it or not. Alberta and Saskatchewan basically are pissed off, and we want something to happen. We want something to work for us for a change. And if this is how it has to happen, then this is what's going to happen. This leads me to green energy. My biggest and soul-crushing gripe about green energy is that it's a pipe dream. Now, I'm not stupid. I know that oil and gas are non-renewable resources. Whether it takes 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, eventually you're going to run out. So you're going to need a solution for that. And I see no reason why we can't start now. But in my opinion, the best alternative, if you want to go completely green and, let them eat cake, let them buy electric cars, seems to be the main slogan I'm hearing all over the place, then there has to be an alternative in terms of the infrastructure, because the infrastructure simply can't take it. Solar and wind will not power Canada. I don't know about other nations, maybe smaller ones like New Zealand perhaps, but not Canada. It's not going to work. you're going to need something else. Hydroelectric power is an alternative, but the environmental destruction that is caused by it can be, unless it's highly regulated, just as devastating as the oil and gas or the coal or the natural gas fired power plants. You add that with the fact that carbon capture is making a lot of these facilities net zero, while the damages that a hydroelectric dam produces, especially in the materials that it uses, the steel, the concrete, and all the other stuff, has little to no regulations based on their pollution output, then it's hard for me to just look at that and go, not really a small carbon footprint here. Another alternative is nuclear, which no one likes talking about for some strange reason. The hard reality is that nuclear energy, in terms of its overall power source, can provide the answer. The only problem is that that's a long-term investment, not a short-term investment. It looks a lot better for politicians to prop up solar accumulation plants than it is for them to dig ground on what is essentially a 50-year project. You could probably build them in shorter time, but what I'm talking about in terms of a 50-year project is that you need to also improve the infrastructure around the plant. And if the plant is being placed in the middle of nowhere, you're going to need to build proper containment facilities, despite what people do with the nuclear waste nowadays. And there is technology coming out over these last 5 to 10 years that is better at cleaning that crap up too. And there's no reason why we can't include that as part of the package. I don't know the science behind it, and I've only heard that it works because they've tested it out in New Brunswick. But if this turns out to be a commercially feasible operation with thorium and molten salt and refining the nuclear waste into deuterium, whatever the hell that is, then at the end of the day, what it turns into is a full cycle of usable energy, things that we can use. Now, why was any of that important? Well, simple. Nuclear power can eventually, if it hasn't already, lead to nuclear fission or fusion. That's the future, whether we like to admit to it or not. All of this sci-fi stuff requires nuclear fusion of some type. Now again, I am a complete moron when it comes to the science behind a lot of this. And I would imagine there's somebody out there that can explain it a hell of a lot better than I can. But here's my argument. If a dumbass like me knows about this, there's no reason why an expert can't explain it in a way that can make it a sellable product for those countries that are going to eventually need it. And the reason why I say this is because at the end of the day, solar and wind are only good for stopgap measures. You add that with the land usage that they have, as well as the environmental impact they have, both in their production and making, as well as the assembly. And at the end of the day, they are no different than the Genesee power plant that I came from, that the last shutdown I did, where we were converting the coal to natural gas to create a dual fuel boiler systems so that Alberta can maintain its net zero targets by 2030, even though most companies claim they're going to have it done by 2025. I don't know. We'll wait and see. Carbon capture has been harped on a lot. It's not it's not a new technology. It's been around for a while, and it proves to be working. Why is that such a big deal? Well, oil companies aren't stupid. If water is expensive, and right now it is, to draw the water that they need to do what they need to do, for SAGD to pull the oil out of the ground, they're going to use alternative methods. And if they can put carbon dioxide downhole and get the same result, they're going to do it. It's as simple as that. Anyway, that's just one guy ranting. I'm pretty sure I'll talk about this some more. Anyway, have a good Christmas. See you next time.